And welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover Podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King. We have a very special edition of the show for you guys today, as it is our 15-year anniversary over at auburnundercover.com. We've got a special promo running on the site. If you guys want to know how we got our start, there's also a story up on the site, as well as we're celebrating 15 years of Auburn coverage for you guys. But on the podcast today, we wanted to bring in the people who made it happen, those who brought Auburn Undercover to life, and kind of get them to tell you guys the story of how our website came to be. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to them, and you guys enjoy the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Hello, everybody. War Eagle to you. Flashback big time. Nathan just said 15 years. I went right there to 2008, and I was like, oh, my goodness. A lot of fun. A lot has changed since then, but anyway, hello. So I'm Scott Brown. I was the original kind of editor for Ronnie and this whole group. That's Ronnie down there. I think you guys still know I know him as Ronnie, but he's gotten very professional in his old age, and he's now Ron. It's a little hard for me to do that, but it's okay. Got Philip as well. We all know who Mr. Philip Marshall is, and then Jamie. So Jamie's the guy who used to write my paycheck. So hi, Jamie. Thanks. Took me to dinner a couple times. Used to talk to Miss Tony a whole bunch. I was just looking at the old website, made me think of it. So, but anyway, thanks for joining us. It's exciting to talk to everybody again, get the whole band back together, and just see what we've been up to, what we're looking forward to, and just kind of hear some stories about how it all began. And since the two guys that started it are here, let's hear from Ronnie and Jamie. Like, you know, what popped in whose brain first to make this baby happen?
Well, I had worked with a guy at Florida. His name's Bob Redmond, and he was working at Gator Country. And Gator Country and a group of other sites had left Scout and had joined what was going to be an ESPN network called Team. And so I was working at Southern Miss. This is after I left Florida, and was coaching Jamie's son, John. He was a walk-on kicker at Southern Miss, and so I had heard about the network and had talked to some people there, and so I needed some investors. And so I knew that John's dad was in business on the Gulf, and reached out, and I think I wore him down. He finally gave in.
No, not really. Me and Ronnie with this opportunity was as an entrepreneur on the coast in Mississippi, Biloxi. Was very intriguing to me. And Ronnie and I and his wife, and my wife met at a restaurant I owned in Ocean Springs. And it didn't take a lot of talking to convince me. I just needed to understand the business model. And so one thing led to another, and Ronnie started educating me about the Team with the ESPN arrangement. And I thought it was very intriguing. And but I needed somebody to run the operation. And so I created a company called Impact Sports. And we were fortunate enough to entice Ronnie to leave his coaching career and come work with us, me, and basically head up Impact Sports. So that was step one, to get Ronnie on board. And then so Ronnie said, well, we can get a number of sites, but let's focus on one or two initially. And I said, okay, good. What do you recommend? And he said he knew Philip well, and he said, I think Auburn would be a perfect fit. So Ronnie reached out to Philip. Philip and I had a couple of conversations on the phone, he and Ronnie. And then Philip made the trip down to Biloxi to have lunch with me and Ronnie at a little restaurant I call Burger. And I think timing was right. Philip knew that the paper was on the decline and the internet was where things were headed. So we were able to offer Philip an opportunity to make the move and not go back financially in his career. And it worked well. Then we started looking at other sites. I think we had Florida State, Oregon, LSU, Ole Miss State. I think we had an Alabama site, Ronnie. I can't remember.
Yep.
But, and of course, Scott, you were all involved with it too. So, once we got things rolling, and but I do remember, okay, when Philip came in, he was hesitant because he and I were up in age at that time. Well, not up in age. We were in our 50s.
We were young, Jamie.
Yeah. So, but the key to success of Auburn Undercover was Philip, all right, without any hesitancy. And so we owe Auburn Undercover to the success in still in its existence because of Philip. So with that, let's hear from Philip.
Well, I appreciate it, Jamie. I know. Here's what I remember getting a call from Scott, who I did not know, and the first words I remember out of his mouth were, "How would you like to work for ESPN?"
That's right. Yep.
And I thought, well, I know for certain ESPN doesn't want my mug on TV, so we're not talking about that. And so we talked about it, and he kind of told me what was going on, and then my memory's a little foggy, but I remember having a couple of phone conversations with Ronnie after that, and I was intrigued. I was nervous about it, but I was intrigued because I was really happy at the Huntsville Times, and I liked my job, and to be bluntly honest, at that time, people in the newspaper business didn't exactly look at these websites as very fondly. But I also knew that people were getting bought out left and right, that the newspaper business was undergoing radical change. And as you can see today, since it's about almost non-existent. And so maybe I ought to consider it. And so as Jamie said, I went down to Biloxi and met with him and Ronnie, and we talked for a long time. And I believe I told them I would let them know. But I came home and talked to my wife about it and did some research and thought that I was, because I was, I guess, 58, and I didn't want to do anything risky. And I decided that it wasn't that risky. What I didn't know was that the economy was about to go and crapper. But anyway, so I decided to do it, and so it began, and I didn't have any idea what I was doing. In my opinion, at the time, I thought I was just going to do the same thing that I've always done. And I had a little bit of internet experience from AL.com, which was a different thing then, obviously, than it is now. And I did a blog every day and those kinds of things. But mostly I was just a newspaper guy. You did your work, you wrote your stories, and then you started working on the next day. And it took me a while to understand that that's not the way the internet business works. That you needed to be current and live. You needed to do stuff all day long. And then there was the message board, which I was completely clueless about and did not understand its importance. somebody had to tell me, hey, you need to link your stories on the message board. I didn't even think about that. I was just trying to write stories. Well, that did. As time went on, I figured it out. But I also figured out, and then this is not aimed at anybody personally, but that ESPN was clueless when it came to websites. And I guess my main memory is we had the story first that Gene Chizik had interviewed at Auburn. And then we had the story first that he had been hired. And ESPN gave other people credit for it. And when I raised hell about it, I was told that I still needed to prove myself. And you might imagine that I didn't take that very well. But anyway, as time went on, I think we had a lot of good fortune, which some of it was bad fortune for other people. I mean, the very first year, Auburn was picked to win the West going into the season, and then the wheels came off, and Tommy Tuberville ended up resigning at the end of the season, and then Chizik, and then the whole Cam Newton saga. I think we established early on that we kind of knew what was going on, and which wasn't what was often being reported what was going on, and I think we got a lot of traction from that. But I, in the end, it's different. It's obviously different than the old newspaper business, but it still comes down to doing good work and to being and to be believable, and for people to believe you know what you're talking about, and working hard. And that's many years ago when I got into the newspaper business, and I was clueless then too, by the way.
Not completely. You had a good role model.
Yeah, but I had no intention of following in his footsteps. And but I figured out early on. I said, hey, I can't wish myself into being a better writer, but I can work. But I have control over how hard I work at it, and that's kind of been my approach really for all these years. And I don't work as hard now as I used to, Jamie. I'll tell you that. But it turned out great for me, great for my family, and I wouldn't change any of it.
Hey, Philip, at our age, you get paid for what you know, not so much what you do.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. No, Jamie, that's exactly right. Because Philip was mentioning AL.com. I was a sports producer at AL.com, so that's how Philip and I did not know each other personally. I would email him and I'd get his stuff and I'd make sure it went on AL.com, and it was in a very different day where we still had to put computer code in there. I mean, that's how old AL.com was at the time and how old school it was. But that getting Philip on board was paramount. And just for what you said, you get paid for what you know. And when Ronnie and I were talking before all this got going, after you talked to Ronnie and the wheels on the bus were definitely moving, it was clear. It's got to be Philip. If we're going to stand up, let's go ahead and stand up as strong as we can in the marketplace and bring somebody who's going to, who has a cash with them, who has a large reputation, and we can kind of help build off of. Because the whole ESPN thing was, that was definitely the carrot, and I think they did that with all of us. Back then, nothing ESPN touched didn't turn to gold except for ESPN Mobile, right? Their phones, everything else they touched turned to gold 3 and 4 times over, and it became an extremely loose relationship. We basically got to use their logo with the word affiliate, next to it, and promises of them putting our writers on, which for the peak before the economy tanked, when I was still with everybody, I think we had 4 sites. We were getting ready to get to 6. we were supposed to have guys on the daily segments, and it never really quite worked that way. So, I definitely applaud this crew for stepping out of maybe their initial comfort zone. Cause to get Philip, it took, like you said, Jamie, he's well established. You didn't want him to go backwards, right? He was concerned about a risk. So, you guys had to make it right. And I remember those, the times in between his decision when we were trying to figure out, exactly which way it was going to go and how we could get it done. But, I'm glad it worked. And, obviously I'm still here. I'm still an avid user of the site. I know plenty of people who are avid users of the site. I talked to Nathan. I know the new guys. I know the old guys. It's turned out really well.
Let me say this. There were a lot of people other than me who contributed to getting this thing going. Ronnie obviously being the obvious one, but Ronnie, all the people who worked for us, all made contributions, and it was a learning experience. There weren't right now. I mean, what it's become is websites are what it is. I mean, whether it's us or AL.com or the New Orleans paper or whatever, it's a website. And but most of us didn't have that much experience, if any, in that kind of business, and it was a learning process that went on for a good while. And I take some pride, I always have, in my ability to adapt. But it was hard. It was hard. Ronnie and I had some, shall I say, spirited conversations.
The one I remember the most, the one that's most vivid, is Becky and I were in Charleston, South Carolina, and I had gone up to see. We were still we weren't married yet, but we were basically engaged, and Ellis Johnson had invited me up there, and he was actually not in town, but he said, "I'll put you up in a hotel. Y'all just come up here. Y'all come up here and enjoy yourselves." So he comped us a room because we didn't have any money, and he comped us a room. And I remember standing there in the hotel room. Philip called, and I don't even remember what it was about, but he was not a happy camper. And he raised his voice, and I raised my voice, and before you know it, now we were going at each other. But we, over time, I think what happened is, we learned how to work together and developed, I think, at least on my end, a deep respect.
Absolutely, 100%.
And we figured it out. And I didn't realize, I guess, how important I knew about, Rivals and Scout and all that stuff. But I don't think I comprehended how important the message board community was. And, that became, really once you're, the board is, it's great to break news. You got to break news, but you also need people talking about it. And I think that's one thing that we struggled with initially, but, we had a core group of guys that followed Philip over from AL.com. And as we grew, some of those guys left because they kind of viewed it as their own personal message board. But no, it's been a great ride. I mean, it's been an interesting and exciting 15 years.
I think the community aspect of it is the hardest thing for someone who hasn't done it before. And probably not as hard now because people are just more accustomed to it. But for us, it was, people could comment on my blog or my stories on AL.com, but I wasn't expected to interact with them. That wasn't part of the deal. So being able to do that and understanding how important that was, it was a learning. It was a process. It was a significant process that I was honestly not prepared for. And but we got there, and I think it's remarkable what with the help of a whole lot of people. I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that we are as strong in the Auburn market as anybody, if not stronger. I mean, AL.com is always going to have the biggest numbers, but I think that I think people view us as the number one place to go to know what's going on at Auburn, and that's because of a lot of people, not just because of me.
Well, hearing all you guys talk, it brings back a lot of memories to me, and good memories. Okay, this is probably one of the most sexiest ventures that I have pursued. Okay, of course, I'm fond of football and sports, and so, but Ronnie was the key. If I hadn't have landed, if we hadn't, Ronnie and I hadn't come to grips on terms, this wouldn't be, okay? Because he was the liaison. He knew the industry, okay, the coaches, and then who were the beat writers, and I just sat back and followed his lead. So it was sexy. I remember when my son Southern Ronnie and them were playing at Auburn, at Auburn, I brought a whole box of Auburn Undercover business cards. I went to every men's bathroom and put a card on every urinal, okay? Every urinal, okay? I was so excited about Auburn Undercover because, I knew I had Ronnie had my back, Scott had my back, but Philip was the face of it and the voice of it. And so it was encouraging, but if I hadn't ever convinced Ronnie, and Ronnie, you had second thoughts, where would you be today? You'd still be in the coaching industry, career. And so, good Lord takes care of good people.
That's right.
And I can honestly say he took care of all four of us. All right. And I'm so happy that I was part of the beginning to be able to give you guys a stable life and something you can raise your families on. And so I'm proud of that. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I thought I'd talked to some other people, but when I first sat down with you, I thought, this is, if I can get him to say yes, this is where we go.
I'm honored, Ronnie.
I'll tell you one thing, Jamie. You talk about Ronnie knowing people.
Yeah.
And more coaches than anybody I have ever known.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
The only one that's close to you, Ronnie, is Kevin Steele.
Yeah. He knows everybody.
Ask Kevin Steele about some unknown coach, and he says, "Oh yeah, he's this, that, the other." And he was like, whenever Auburn made like staff changes, Ronnie always heard about it. Always, he always knew.
Yeah.
And that played a great deal too. In that, for a long time, every time Auburn hired an assistant coach, we had it first. And that was more. A lot of times, my name was on it, but it was actually more because of Ronnie than because of me. And it was fun. It's still fun, but it was really fun in those days. It was it's the only time I've ever been part of when you go. I worked for several different newspapers, but none of them started off with zero. Well, I guess they started off, but when I got there, none of them had zero subscriptions. So
I remember going up to the SEC media days one year, and here's Ronnie got us in Tuberville's hotel room, sitting there talking with him on a couch, 1-on-1. Okay.
I think we met with Nick too. Saban too, didn't we?
You met with Nick.
We sit down 1-on-1 with Nick too. Okay. And
I protest now. I'm the one that got you in there with Tuberville, not Ronnie.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, thank you, Phil. Well, I was impressed, Philip. I was impressed. Okay. And
when we walked in the room, I think we met in his hotel room, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we walked in the room, and I hadn't seen Tommy in a couple of years, and he didn't even know I was involved. Like I say, Philip, and I walked in, he says, "Well, hey, Ronnie, what are you doing here?" So I had to fill him in, but it was good.
It was truly fun, and that's, as I said earlier, that's one of the great blessings of my life is that my job has been in many ways my hobby. It's been what I enjoy. I haven't dreaded going to work, and it's just been that. Now there were times early on that I wondered what in the hell I was thinking. I won't deny that.
Yeah, I think we both were.
At 58 years old, Philip, yeah, you'd have second thoughts a lot of times.
But
I think Jamie had some second thoughts. I remember us getting on a plane and going to Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, to meet the team guys, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
To meet the team guys, that core group of ESPN affiliates.
Right. We went up to see Lee Shear, who had started Bucknuts and who kind of headed up the whole team thing. And we go tour the Bucknuts. They had several people working for them at that point in time. I remember we get back on the plane, and I looked at Jamie and I said, "Well, what do you think?" He says, "I think we got a lot of work to do." We did.
And we did.
But I think go ahead, Jamie.
I went to a meeting up in New York to meet Lee. Was the guy with Bucknuts?
Yes.
Yeah, he and I went up to meet with ESPN up in New York. And, when I left there, and I'll still say this today, I think he soured that deal with the ESPN. He was the one that I didn't like his negotiation tactics. And I think he was the one that spoiled the whole venture with ESPN for all of us.
And I'm not, I remember when Shannon Terry, he sold Rivals and then had a 3-year non-compete and started 24/7. But I remember when I met with Shannon, they had offered him, or he had discussions with ESPN about starting a network. And I think that what it came down to is Shannon wanted full control for X amount of years, and ESPN really wasn't willing to do that. And I think, and he could probably clarify some of this, but he, if I remember right, his comment to me was, they don't really know anything about team sites. They know all about sports and, TV and all this stuff, but they don't really know anything about team sites. And, Shannon was bound and determined when his non-compete was finished in March of that year, he was going to start a new network. Of course, we launched, we went live on 24/7 in August of 2010, I guess. But he started immediately building a network and structurally, hiring engineers and all that stuff. But we were, within a year on 24/7. I mean, we were much further ahead on 24/7 than we ever were on ESPN. I mean, the sites that we had with ESPN there was no common database. We had to do everything. And then and Philip, when we hired Philip, it was Scott and me and Philip, and that was it. And mostly Philip. He was the face and all that stuff. We didn't have a recruiting person. We didn't have another helper. And like Philip says, we were fortunate that we had some good news, and Philip broke almost all of it. And then 2013 was after Chiswick was fired, and they hired Malzahn. I think we broke, out of the 9 assistant coach hires, I think we broke 8 of them. So
we would have had Malzahn too at the Arkansas State website, not had it first.
We would have.
Ronnie, I remember going to Birmingham, and you and I went and met with Paul Fonbaum at his radio studio, okay? And then we went out to dinner with him, okay? Because we really, you were cultivating, as much as support from other media that we could get for Auburn Undercover, that was very educational to me. Okay, but it goes back. you need to go see somebody, call Ronnie. Ronnie will make it happen.
Well, the Feinbaum thing was, Paul and I had been friends for a long time. Philip and Paul were not such good friends for a long time.
I understand.
So we eventually came to an agreement that, I would go on Paul's show.
I was going to say it was you or me.
But it ended up working out. He ended up helping us, actually. He promoted the site and all that stuff. So
yeah, so
it was very great.
It was great memories, guys. I'm glad I was along for the ride. I can't thank the three of you guys enough for including me. Okay, I didn't add much to the table, but
you brought the money.
You brought the money, yeah.
At the time, Scott actually had some kind of a grasp on what we were trying to do, and I think I about drove him crazy because I'd work all day long and get stories and stuff and all that stuff, and then 7 o'clock in the morning I'd put it all on there.
Yeah, all at once.
But maybe
and that's the way I'd always done it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think I about drove him crazy.
No, it's all good. I was going to say earlier when you guys were talking about that, and I'm just sitting here looking at the podcast screen, right? And like this, I started work for Paul. That's how I met Ronnie. Then I went to AL.com, and Jamie. This kind of, Auburn Undercover really got me going. Like from there on, I've been going. So that's really where everything did start with me. But just looking at it now, like what we've really done, I think with Philip and Ronnie, and then they're still doing it now with the podcast, is they innovate and we innovate. I mean, we're talking about the internet in 2008. Look what we're doing now. It's already drastically different than what we all started with. And Ronnie, you got to give yourself a little more credit than that. You knew about the message boards because you were all over me about the message boards. And similar to Philip, I didn't really like them. I didn't want to live in them. I would lurk in them as a viewer, but I didn't want to live in them. I didn't necessarily enjoy hopping in there and seating them or having some of the arguments, but I knew it needed to happen. But the blend of the inside knowledge that on the coaching carousel front that we would get with the tradition of Philip and what he brought, I think that's how we innovated the team site game. And, it was kind of tried, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And we even tried to do it ourselves on a couple other properties, and it didn't quite go as well. And then some other owners have tried it too, and it didn't quite, it didn't go as well there too. So
I think the biggest difference was, not to interrupt Scott, but I think the biggest difference was, I'm not sure, I won't call any names, but I think we hired a few guys, Jamie, that didn't work quite as hard as Philip.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And also, they also weren't as innovative and driven to succeed as Philip was. And the one thing that I think, back to Scott's point, I think the one thing we've always done is try to be innovative and try to do something different. And that was always Philip's mantra. And kind of I picked the thing up too, is let's be different. What are we doing when we pull up our front page every day? What are we doing to be different than everybody else? Because, we're also, we're trying to sell subscriptions. We want to drive traffic. We want to get people on the site. But, how do we sell subscriptions? And you got to do something different and give people something different than they're getting everywhere else. If you go to a press conference and write the same thing that's on AL.com, people can get that for free. So how are we going to be different? And Philip did a really, really great job of helping us be different. And
you stop and think about it. It's a tough business model. Okay, you gotta, you're trying to be different, like Ronnie said. Think outside the box to entice somebody to pay a monthly fee to just listen to you. Okay, and so it's an interesting business model, and every day starts a new day. because they forget what yesterday was. They want to know what today is. And I think that's what Philip, Scott, and Ronnie, y'all were able to, are still doing, okay? Because that's a tough sell, guys. You know, especially with today's economy and it's a hard business model. But
it was super hard when we started. Well,
yeah.
You know, we thought it was going to be hard, and then we had, you know, the economic downturn. And if I remember right, we had the oil spill in the Gulf, and we had Katrina, and it was just kind of boom, 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 one thing after another. And you know, it was tough sledding there for a couple of years. And
sure was.
When we did the deal with 24/7 and Shannon Terry, you know, it was, you know, it was. You know, the fact that he started a new network and the economic downturn and the fact that he had experience doing this before was huge for us. And he really, you know, he kept harping to me even after we moved over, hey, message board. And at the end of the day, it was Philip and you know, for all the Philip not saying he didn't know about the message board and didn't like it.
He's in there.
He has become addicted, I think, over the past years.
Yes.
Now that's going a little far.
You're in there. Your fingers do the talking. You're in there.
Oh, I'm in there a lot, and but I think that's it. I think that's. Let me just put it this way: it's not because I think it's great fun to be in there. I think it's important to be in there, and also I think it's important to keep it under some semblance of control. I think we finally about broken people from talking about politics on the message board, but I think it's important to make it comfortable for everybody, and I think it's important to. I mean. I hate saying this, but it's more important probably than the stories we write. It's probably the most important thing of all.
It's massively important.
I envision it because, you know, I'm not involved in it, but kind of like an IV in your arm, that constant drip, and monitoring what's going on. It's intriguing.
I have a good friend who's a retired sports writer who reads our site all the time, and he told me, he said I tell myself I'm going to stop doing it. He said, but I just can't stay off that message board. And I think that's true of a lot of people.
Yeah, it's addictive. Yeah,
I had a friend actually message me yesterday. Private messaged me on Auburn Undercover, and he said, and we actually worked together when we were students at Auburn. He had watched our podcast from a couple of days ago and said, you know, you're the same as you were. I said, I don't know about that, but he said, but he's on the message board all the time, and I think that, you know, that's people kind of, you know, they get comfortable and it becomes their community.
I think that was on the message board, Ronnie, because I remember reading it. So
okay.
But yeah, it's been it's hard to believe it's been 15 years, to be honest with you. But it's been fun. It's changed. Of course, it always changes. Things always change. And we had some good people that helped us out, and we hired some people who weren't so helpful, to put it kindly. But we kept at it, and it's very rewarding to see where it is today.
And we did cycle through some guys. I mean, we'd hire somebody and Philip would get tired of them, or they'd piss him off, or you know.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to mention any names, so. But we had a lot of good people too. A lot of people did a lot of good stories, and most of them had issues with you couldn't get them on the message board enough. That was one thing. But I've had a lot of help. We've had a lot of help. It's been it's been like I said, a rewarding experience to see where it is now, and hopefully it will stay that way for a long time after I'm gone.
Well, that's just what I was going to ask, Philip. Thanks for leading us there. Ronnie, what do the next 15 years look like? Philip, what do the next 15 look like for you?
For me?
Yeah. What are you guys doing the next 15 years?
I just hope I get 15 more years, Scott. That's
I'm going to give you 15. I'm going to give you 15. You got 15, Philip.
15 more years of living.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
Look, I'm close. I'm getting close to the end. Anybody knows that. My wife tells me constantly, you can't work forever. But my problem is I don't know what I'm going to do when I don't. And but other than that, for however long I lasted Auburn Undercover, then I got a wonderful wife and kids and grandkids, and I got 3 grandkids and a son and daughter-in-law that live in Pennsylvania that I don't see nearly as much as I'd like to. So just hopefully live long enough to just spend more time with family, and probably before too long welcome some great grandkids.
Nice.
That's when you know you're old. You have great grandkids.
Well, fellas, let's just hope they put a statue or a plaque up on campus for us. Okay, Philip, see if you can make that happen. Okay, Philip.
I believe that's above my pay grade. I don't believe I'm
pull in anybody you got to do. You pull in Tuberville, and damn, you can make this happen. Okay. Well, damn, I tell you what we do. Let's get one made
and put it up,
and go put it up. That's
Absolutely
exactly right. Yeah. Find out Philip. Find out that's permissible.
No, you can't erect stuff on campus. I know that answer. They would, we used to want to try to sell subscriptions at games. You can't do stuff like that.
I used to go around, much like Jamie. I used to go around and I would I got some of those cards. We had them all made, and I'd go around before games and put them on windshields. I counted out thousands and thousands and thousands of cars.
Hey, Philip, we'll nail it to a telephone pole. They can't touch that. It's all right, fellas. Well,
hey, this has been really fun, and it's great talking to you guys again. And Jamie, I say this every time I come down there that I'm going to call you.
Please do.
To Biloxi. And I told my wife's got the greatest hamburger place in the world down there. Yeah.
Everybody's got to come to Burger when they come to Biloxi. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's a must do. Okay.
Absolutely.
But you know what, fellas? I'm looking at the 3 of y'all. I'm very proud of what we did. Okay. I'm very, very proud. And again, I'm just thanks for bringing me along with you. Okay, guys.
Well, thanks for believing in all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that's certain, Jamie, is this never would have gotten off the ground without you.
That's true.
Well, guys, thanks for saying that, but that's hard for me to believe. It's I'm pointing at Ronnie. Ronnie was the one that Ronnie made it happen. Okay?
I couldn't have done it alone, certainly, and I needed somebody to believe in me, and I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, well, good people attract good people. Okay.
All right, my friends.
Well, guys, thanks for getting on. I really appreciate it.
We should do this on an annual basis.
Absolutely.
There you go. Let's do it.
Just so we can see each other and see how much older we get. Okay.
I'm going to call you next time I'm down there, Jamie.
Please, Ronnie, please. Okay. I can get you a VIP pass. Okay. Free buffet, free valet parking. It's what y'all need. Okay. I'm serious. I can help y'all in a lot of ways. Okay. Hey, Scott, it's always a pleasure seeing you.
You as well, Jamie.
Your wife and family for me. Same, Philip. I cherish the friendship. And I'm glad we all helped each other with a better life. Okay? Tell hello to your families for me. That means a lot to me. Okay?
You too, Jamie.
Will do.
Same.
Thank you,
All right.
Jamie.
All right. See y'all later.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.